Shall we get into the story time?
We shall. Again, we are super excited this week because it is almost what anniversary is it now?
This is the 5th anniversary.
5th anniversary. I lose track of time.
Well,
it blurs in my mind.
2017 and it's 2022. 5 years on the dot.
Math.
This week. Yeah, this is it.
I can't believe it that it's been.
It has really
5 years has really flown by, and so much has changed in 5 years.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy if you think about it.
It's one of those things where it feels like time has flown, but no time has passed at all.
Oh no, your voice.
Don't worry about me.
Are you okay?
I'm just fine.
Pat you on the back here?
Whap me. No. I didn't ask for that.
Yeah, it really does feel like time has really flown by. But you and I were both there for Switch is launch. That's a really hard thing to say. Nintendo Switch's launch in a really big way. And the really fun thing is that you and I were doing completely different things for once, which is really doesn't really happen very often.
We were separated.
We were. There was so much to do. We had to do different things. Like they had to split us up to do different things, which was kind of crazy because usually you and I are doing the same launches. We're usually at the same events together. We're working on the same things together. But this time it was like you were doing something completely different than I was doing.
So you were the public relations lead for Switch hardware overall, which is, congratulations.
I guess. I don't know why.
And then I was in this interesting role where I was kind of coordinating all the marketing for Breath of the Wild.
But the global marketing lead.
So it was...
Which is a really interesting role, actually.
Right, because you have to remember, it's all right, well, somebody's got to think of how to get this hardware out there. But then there's all these games, too, that need all this attention as well.
These crazy, awesome, AAA...
Just the best game ever.
Best game ever. Yeah, we talked a little bit about this. But but not only were you the lead on the Nintendo of America side, you were the global lead. So Japan, Europe, all of those, everybody was looking to you to put all the pieces together, which is how do you do that?
Yeah, that was a very interesting.
Hard,
that was a very interesting role to have. But that meant that we were, often apart doing other stuff.
Different things, yeah.
But so it kind of reminds me of something I like about Star Wars movies is in the big finale. It's oh, now we're in this scene and there's crazy thing happening there, and now we flash over to this other place.
There's a heist happening on this side,
and you're going back and forth, and it's oh my gosh, it's so exciting. That's kind of what it felt like.
Totally opposite ends of the country too, geographically. It was insane. Yeah. But to rewind a little bit back, that's what we were doing. But where the company was with Switch's launch, I can't say this, the sentence sounds weird. Switch's launch, it sounds weird to me.
Launch of the Switch.
Oh, whoa.
The Switch console, TM.
The Nintendo Switch console, TM.
These legal lines will haunt me.
People are going to come
haunt
get
my
you.
dreams, yeah.
But where the company was pretty interesting too, because we were just coming out of that Wii U era, where certainly the mood was a little bit more stoic. Yeah. Wii U was tough time. It was a challenge. And we were I think everybody collectively at Nintendo, whether it was, on our team or just in general, people were just ready to go.
Yeah.
Let's move on and let's ring in this new era. So there was very palpable electric excitement in the air, I felt like. And with that came sort of this brazenness that I haven't seen from Nintendo in the past, where it's let's do all these crazy PR stunts. We're willing to spend this marketing dollars to do something insane, which is very not Nintendo, because usually they're very conservative.
Yeah.
We don't do a lot of crazy stuff. Everything is pretty typical. Mm-hmm. I think because everyone was we need to come out of this Wii U era in a big way with Switch. We're going to be willing to put it all out there, which was super cool. It just felt like this opportunity to do something insane, and this is your chance to actually do something really cool.
And there was a very big change in the way that we showed the product. Before it would have been this kind of 3D flyover is well, this has a 6.2 inch screen and we've got 4 buttons here, 4 buttons there. It's no, we had that video where we revealed the Switch and it was just people playing it, and you just saw just in a real world setting, all the different uses. And that was, kind of come up with by the folks over in Japan.
Yeah.
And has really continued to carry through that same, there's been some tweaks, but that's still the same kind of philosophy that's worked so well.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit of when the Wii was announced and they had like a very they had like the Wii would like to play, showing people using the Wii remote and all that stuff. It kind of felt like that again, the magic of the Wii era, and then we had this kind of lull with Wii U, and then now we're like back to this like really exciting magic of Switch. Yeah. Which is really cool.
Yeah, but that's just kind of, the fun and the risk of, being in the console business is every time you put out a new one, you're kind of reshuffling the deck, and it's like, well, maybe it'll work and maybe it won't.
Yeah, and maybe it resonates with people, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah, and there's this very interesting history of consoles where it's like, it's very hard to stay on top for multiple generations.
Yeah.
But you also see this a lot of times, people who were not doing well before just like completely boom.
Yeah, it's like a cyclical
it can flip-flop
thing.
Yeah. So we knew that was possible.
Yeah. And then I think when you and I first saw Switch, we were both like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
Like you knew right away. Like with Wii U, you definitely were like, I don't know about this. But with Switch, like that moment you undock the system and it just becomes a handheld, like you knew that was magic, and like that was shown in all of the marketing and that really, that like moment that I felt of this incredible like, oh yeah, this is like totally changing how you play video games is ultimately what inspired the overall like Switch hardware launch that we did, that I led. So it was like very simple, and I think that's what is so special about Switch and the way that the marketing for Switch worked is that like it was something that's so simple everybody could understand it. It's like,
unlike the Wii U.
Unlike the Wii U, you can say it in one sentence. Home console, you can take it on the go. Like that's it.
You do see though, like a lot of both in games and in hardware, like Nintendo will test an idea in a small way, and see how people, jive with it, and then then they'll go big with it.
Right.
So, an example of in Breath of the Wild is in A Link Between Worlds is like, okay, you can go to these dungeons whenever you want. So that was kind of a small test, and then it was like, okay, now we're going to go big on that.
Yeah.
And there are some inspiration from the Wii U gamepad that you see in the Switch that were just blown out. That I think there was.
It does. There is a stepping stone effect with everything.
Yeah.
Whether it's small or big or however big or small the inspiration is, it is like iterating upon the thing before it. So it's not like this whole thing was completely a waste of time or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess we can get into like the actual launch stuff and what.
Yes.
Why are you doing this?
I'm ready.
You're excited to relive.
I'm vibrating with excitement.
I
want to live again. Yes.
So like we were saying, you and I are doing completely different things. I was in charge of launching the hardware and doing like the hardware launch campaign for Switch, which ended up being this like ridiculous.
It was insane.
PR stunt, and
I wouldn't have signed up to do this.
I thought it was really fun, but it was a lot of work. Like I definitely aged a bit, and I got trapped in the snow, and I was on the road for 2 weeks. Anyways, so it was a lot. But basically, the idea was we would construct these glass living rooms and put them in these like really ridiculous, like beautiful locations.
As we would say, unexpected spaces.
Unexpected places.
Places or spaces?
Places.
Okay.
Get it right, okay?
I wasn't there.
Pay attention to the work that I'm doing.
It wasn't Zelda, so I didn't care.
Oh, it's true. So you made these like glass living rooms, and the walls were like frosted, so that when you undock the Switch, the walls would unfrost.
Right.
So it's like that whole like visual thing of like you can play this anywhere.
Yeah.
You think you're at home, but you're actually in the desert.
Your world is expanding.
You're in Aspen.
Yeah.
We were actually in Aspen. You're in the like New York City. Like that effect was really cool.
I'm sure that was super hard to get right.
Such a pain in the butt. Like the marketing team that did it that helped us with like the actual build of it.
Yeah.
They were incredible. I don't even know how they managed. They like built this thing and then like shipped it across the country. We like drove it across the country.
Yeah.
But I remember it was the morning of that first activation, which was in
Where was that?
Santa Clarita, which was in LA, Southern California.
But it was like in the middle of nowhere.
It was in the middle of this desert. Like we were in the desert mountains. It was like windy and freezing cold. And they were like still constructing it like an hour before press and influencers and like celebrities are supposed to show up to like see this activation. And there was like this issue where the film, because it was so cold, it would like bubble on the glass.
Oh.
So the whole effect was like ruined basically, because you could see, like you couldn't see the world around you once you like unfrosted the glass. So there was like this crazy scramble like within that last hour.
That always happens with these sorts of events though. There's always some small issue to get ironed out.
It was literally needed to get ironed out because it was like wrinkly on the glass, and the money that we spent on this marketing campaign was like, we needed to capture these visuals. That was the whole point of it, because it was like a PR stunt. Nothing else was like happening. You just needed these like visuals to send it around and like get people talking about it, you know? So it was like critical that we needed to get this to work. So it was like extremely stressful. That also was the first and biggest stop, because the person that we partnered with was John Cena.
Who?
You know, John Cena.
I'm not familiar with
You're not familiar with him. You didn't even see him, did you? No.
Where did that joke come from?
I think I don't know.
So, what do you need to know about us? We're not into wrestling, okay? There's a lot of people at Nintendo who are really crazy into wrestling.
He was the nicest person.
He seems nice.
Ever. Like he was so nice and just so sweet, and genuinely was like super Nintendo, like a super fan. Like he was like, I'm on a flight with my friends and we were playing Mario Kart. Like, like he asked me all these questions about like, okay, so with this, because Switch hasn't even come out yet. It was like 2 weeks before launch. He's like, with this, what do you mean by like I can do this on the go? Like he was like really trying to like wrap his head around it. It was just really cute. But yeah, he was doing like this flurry of media interviews at the time. So like we just needed this thing to work. Like we really needed it to work out.
Right.
And in the end, it did. It looked beautiful.
Did you shake his hand?
I did shake his hand.
How big is his hand?
Oh my gosh. He also like, I have a picture of him like hugging me, and I was like, this is weird. Like, what is my life right now?
German suplex? Figure 4 leg lock?
Like, would you suplex me?
These are just some wrestling terms I know that I'm listing right now.
I only know it from Street Fighter.
Yeah. Pile driver?
Pile driver? Yeah.
That might hurt.
Zangief?
Don't do that.
Is that you? Yeah, and then we took the whole activation across the country. We were in Aspen.
You said a bad word. Activation.
Activation?
Don't say that ever again.
Activation?
Now I'm getting cross at you.
We're going to ideate on this activation?
That's just a corporate word. It's a corporate bad word.
We're going to ideate on the activation.
I'm upset that you said that, okay? Don't say that again, please.
What do you want me to call it?
I just had a flashback.
Of like a meeting? You're like, you have PTSD from these meetings?
Tell me about the activation. I need to know about.
Oh my gosh,
how are you activating?
Don't do that.
See, now you've become one of them.
Don't do that. We took the living room.
Thank you.
On the road with us. We were in Aspen on this like ski slope.
Right.
People were skiing up and down to like work. It was really funny. Like our event.
You made it sound like it was just like right in the middle.
It was.
It sounded dangerous for these skiers.
It was like, this is like the run.
If it's a glass room, you can't see it.
Just like
you didn't think of that, did you?
Like a gnat flying, like a fly, like or like one of those birds that fly into those windows.
A poor bird.
No, it was really cute. Like people would ski down, and then like we'll see like the. Like, what's that? Like, you know, the big Nintendo Switch sign on it. And then and they can stop in and play. This was open to the public. So anyone that was, like, coming down, and people loved it. It was, like, so much fun, like, playing Mario Kart and stuff like that. It was great. But I did get trapped there, though, because a
there's like a blizzard or something?
Came in, like, right after we were finished. Like, the day that we finished, the storm came in that night.
Yeah.
And there's no flights directly from Aspen to New York. I was going from.
Well, you were going straight there.
I was going straight to New York for the midnight launch. So I
can't be late for that.
Time waits for no one. What are you gonna do? Time waits for no one. I think I had built in a couple extra days just in case.
Oh.
So, but there was.
You were gonna loaf a little bit in New York.
I was gonna.
You're just gonna hang out.
I was gonna hang out. I was gonna
on
shop.
The company dime. I see. Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Just gonna be there in case I need to prepare anything else. In New York.
All right.
But yeah, I ended up getting out in time. But yeah, there was one day where I was just like completely snowed in. I opened the window and I was like, okay, can't go anywhere today.
Yeah, that's a no.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Right.
But it was fun. It was beautiful there. It was like amazing. The scenery was just incredible. And then from there we went to New York. We set up in, it wasn't Times Square. What's the other place? Flatiron.
But it was not at the Nintendo store.
No,
right.
We wanted it to be like in the like kind of feel like it was in the middle of Manhattan.
Flatiron is that wedge kind of building.
Exactly,
right?
It was right in front of there. What a landmark, you know.
Right.
And and then we had like double-decker buses bringing people back and forth between.
How far is that from the store?
Not that far.
Okay.
It's probably like, I don't know, like a 10-minute drive. Not too bad.
Okay.
And people would go back and forth and they can get to the store. We had people like undocking the system and then like playing it on the bus and then like going to the store and coming back. It was really cool. And then that was where we did have a midnight launch in the store with a giant switch that was counting down the time to midnight. And yeah, I mean, it was such a trip because again, it was like the first time I think Nintendo really like sort of allowed this type of creativity and this really different kind of marketing. You know, again, usually we don't do like stunts like this and we're really conservative. So it was like, I don't know, we've never done anything like it again.
Yeah.
That was the only year that we were like allowed to like do this kind of crazy sort of stunty kind of thing. That
Who bought the first system? Was this the Captain Nintendo dude era?
I think it was. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was.
And Doug Bowser was there.
Doug Bowser was there. And
sold the first system.
Did the handoff.
Right,
yes,
right.
That's right. I think there's photos of that.
Right.
So, yeah. That was fun to see that line around the block of Rockefeller. And then you had the first system being sold. And there's always like a line of the early, you know, people that wanted as early as possible already lined up days before.
Yeah.
This was March, so it was still pretty cold in New York, too.
Yeah, early March, New York is chilly.
It's chilly. I mean, this dedication to wait out there for, for that first system. But
now did you have a Switch at this time?
I did, yes.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. I had it. I think I posted a photo like that night when I finally could share that I had it. But I had it before.
You broke the embargo?
No, it was midnight,
You're going to retroactively get in trouble.
Oh, no. Confiscate my Switch?
Statute of limitation never runs out on that.
The ninjas have so many marks against me now. I'm definitely like in for it. Oh my goodness.
Loafing in New York with a Switch you weren't supposed to have.
With a pre-launch Switch.
Oh my goodness. How dare you.
Yes, I remember that was I was like, am I going to get one of these to take with me on this like really long road trip?
Well, that's always like the concern is like, okay, we're launching this cool thing. Now, how do I get one?
Yeah. And also like, will I get it in time?
And there's always a lot of like diciness of like, well, the company's thinking what we can do. And it's like, I need to know. Yeah. It's like, do I need to go pre-order this thing? Do I need to?
Yeah, just tell me.
Yeah. I need to meet a guy in like the parking lot of a Denny's? Or like, what do I need to do?
Someone going to open the trunk of their car and give this thing to me or what? Like, tell me.
Yeah. So fortunately, it worked out.
I think that one was okay. Yeah, that was okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was me.
Okay.
What were you doing?
Well, so
what kind of work did you do?
So the launch of the Switch and Breath of the Wild happened to coincide with the Game Developers Conference that year, which was just very fortuitous timing. And we decided that we were going to have 3 of the developers of the Breath of the Wild come over to give this big talk about the game at the Game Developers Conference. And that show's interesting because we always have these debates of like, well, who is the audience for this?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, the people... Unless you're a game developer, you're not going to the Game
like,
Developers Conference.
Right. It's not like a public show,
you can't
like
get
E3
in.
or PAX or something.
And for like 90% of the talks, it would be completely boring to you and over your head.
It's like really technical stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we decided, you know, we worked with the conference of like, you know, we want to be able to film it and we want to have a good way to get, you know, content from that event out for people to see, because we've got this game coming out. We want to kind of do it both ways. We want to talk to the developers, but we also want to help promote this game. And they were okay with that because they knew this was a big talk and a big game. So the 3 people that we had coming over, not Mr. Aonuma.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
I think he'd said he'd had enough. He had enough at that point.
Good.
Because he had just come like 2 months before.
He was from like Paris or something, right?
No, he came to New York about 2 months ago.
Oh, that's right.
When we remember, this is a very tight window.
That's right.
In January, we had the big event in New York where he and Mr. Miyamoto
We'll talk about that event another time.
Yeah.
But that was...
Maybe the 6th year anniversary.
Yeah, that's different. That's a different...
So I think he had just had enough, and
that must be exhausting.
And I mean, it's there are so many other amazing people working on this game. So he sent Mr. Fujibayashi, who is the game director.
Yeah.
He sent Mr. Dota, who is the game technical lead.
Okay.
And then the third guy, I am blanking on his name, so I'm not going to hazard a guess, but he was the art lead.
Yeah, the art lead.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because these people were obviously very integral to the game, but I don't think they had a lot of experience doing
like
that kind
speaking,
of public-facing, like putting on a big talk. And there's like, thousands of people in the audience for this.
And they were like live streaming, or they were like, there was going to be like a video.
It's a big deal. So
version, yeah.
And the other thing that's interesting about these talks is we spend time leading up to it of like, all right, what are you going to talk about? Are you working on your slides? What do let me help give you some feedback or some guidance.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, nobody's ready once they get off the plane.
No.
They're
not ready at all.
It's like, well, I'm, 50% of the way there.
And then you look at it and it's like one slide.
Like, oh boy.
Oh no.
Or it's like, oh, well, I got this idea and I want to redo it. So we had like a couple days before where we were just in a hotel and it was like, all right, well, we're going to get this thing into ship shape and we're going to do rehearsals.
You will not leave that room
and
until
you're going to be ready to go.
Yeah.
And
it's like lock-in. We're locking in.
So it was those three guys plus their translators, 3 people from the treehouse, the top of the top translators.
They are the most amazing. Yes. But don't even call them translators. They're like magicians.
But we got of that group.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Got like the top 3 people.
Of the crop of the magicians in the treehouse.
Right. And also Chico. People know Chico from Treehouse Live.
Chico, I miss you so much.
She was very much my partner in crime on that.
Yes,
on that
Chico
game.
is like. Yeah, you and her were like joined at the hip for all things Zelda, like a whole year, which is so fun.
I owe her a life debt, maybe.
Oh,
anyhow,
that's true.
So we get into this room. It's very clear, like,
we're not ready.
We got a long way to go on this.
We are not ready.
They're kind of tinkering and fiddling around, and we would do like a talk. The talk's like an hour and a half too, so it's not like you can just bang these out. It's if we're gonna do a dry run, we're really committing to it.
Yeah.
So, we were tinkering and doing these runs and it got to be nighttime. And this was the day before the talk.
Yeah.
And it's like...
This is legit like cramming for a college exam.
And this is where it's like, well, I'm in charge of the schedule. I'm in charge of, making sure this thing gets done. And so I was like, well, so we can either go to dinner or we can just stay here and like order in and,
keep going.
Grind through it. And they're like, no big deal. Let's go out to the dinner and let's go do that. So we go to this like... really good like crab, because San Francisco they want crab.
The dungeon is crab.
And I remember these people people had crab grease up to their elbows. They were going crazy on this crab. They were loving it. I was like, oh, this is good. They're taking their mind off of this.
Take like a little breather.
Right.
Yeah.
The ways that you look at these things when you're kind of in charge of it, like, good, eat. You need your energy.
You need your strength.
Yeah.
But also, like, don't eat that gross. We have another story about developers and their food where I was like...
their food choices.
I was like, fingers crossed you don't have a stomach ache tomorrow.
More than a stomach ache. Oh my gosh.
This could be bad for us later. But yeah, so eating dungeon is crap.
So we have this great dinner. We go back, and it's like 9 o'clock. And I was like, all right, what do you want to do? They're like, we're going to keep working on this. And I say, okay. Right. So I made the executive decision. I said, you know what? The 6 of you are all talking in Japanese nonstop. You got a long way to go. I'm going home.
9 o'clock. Yeah. It's like, what are you doing?
Because it's like, well, I could just like,
sit here,
fall on the sword and be like, I will sit with you until you get this done. But I was like, no.
I think it's worse if you were there, because they were like, oh, do we need to include him?
Right.
Like, slow down.
Do I need to tell him what's happening?
Yeah.
Every stretch of it. It was
Let them just work it out.
This will be fine. These guys got this.
Yeah.
So I went home.
They're not babies.
Came early the next morning, check in, and it's like, all right, well, what do we got? And they're like, well, we were here until like 3 in the morning.
3 in the morning? Couldn't you even stay?
But we got it done. And we did one run that morning before the actual talk.
It was perfect?
It was perfect. We made like small, tiny tweaks, but we got it done. And then we go in and we do the session. Session is amazing. That's the session that people should absolutely see. The full thing's up on the GDC YouTube channel.
Yeah, we put a card in for this before because it's so good. It is that good.
But they really like break down like what makes that game so amazing and all the interconnected systems and how they made this kind of unified, living, breathing world. I mean, a lot of GDC talks don't pay that off so well.
Yeah.
But this was like, no, we're going to tell you how we made this incredible game.
Yeah, and they do it in a way where anybody can understand it, which I thought was so special.
Right.
Like, again, usually if you're not a developer and it's very technical, it's like, huh?
And they showed all this stuff that we'd never seen before.
Concept art
of like, oh, well, we made this prototype that was like the original Legend of Zelda.
That's right.
But we put
and they had that thing was like, we light this on fire and see what this, like the chain reaction.
We put the systems of Breath of the Wild in this, and my mind's just exploding.
Yeah.
Like, can you please release that, or can I play that? That's amazing.
It's so cool.
So that was awesome. We geeked out on that. They totally nailed that. And then that night, we went to dinner again, and we had talked loosely with kind of some of the people in sales at the office of like, I think these guys would like to check out a launch, because that night was the launch. That was March 2nd. Yeah. So it was, our stores were doing midnight launches.
Yeah.
So we found in the area in San Francisco what was
GameStop
kind of the local GameStop.
Yeah.
And they knew that we were coming by. We weren't going to do like a whole big, like, we're, meet and greet everybody.
Yeah, it was just they wanted to see it.
They wanted to see it.
Yeah.
So we did that, and they were super excited to see that, and that was really cute.
That's one thing too, is that like you forget that sometimes the developers, they're like so, entrenched in making the game, they rarely pull out to see, like to be a part of something like a midnight launch, So it's actually a really special experience for them to see how the fans are reacting and the excitement. Like it's it really energizes them, I think.
Yeah, and also while they were there on that trip, the reviews had come out.
And it was like so we were sparkly.
We were just feeding them like, oh, best game ever, 10 out of 10, perfect score. And
you're like sabering champagne on the streets of San Francisco.
These guys were riding high.
Like,
So, it was also fun to get to see them kind of come out of their shell a little bit, because again, they hadn't done that a lot. And Mr. Fujibayashi is a really interesting person, where he'd worked at Capcom before, and he'd worked on some of the previous Zelda games, but this was obviously, these people think like, oh, Mr. Aonuma's, he's doing everything. But it's like, no, Mr. Fujibayashi is really making a lot of the creative decisions in this game.
And they have just this incredible team spirit, all of them. It's truly a team effort. When you meet them, you kind of understand more about like everyone's different roles and how they work so well together. And Mr. Aonuma, of course, oversees all of that, but it's truly a team effort.
Yeah, and we did sort of exchanged emails with him before, but I'd never met him in person. So it was great to kind of put the face to the name and kind of create a relationship there.
Yeah, I got to know him a little bit more at TGA's later that year.
Right.
And then I learned a lot about him that I was like, oh, we'll tell you in the TGA story.
He is a fascinating person.
He's a very cool person.
Yeah, so... so that was just a very special way to celebrate the launch with these developers of this game, and being so deep entrenched with them on this crazy project. And I probably slept for, several days straight after that, just because it was a little tense. I was like, oh, we got to get this done.
Yeah, it's always like that. You burn out, for the couple, week or so leading up to a big launch like that, and then your body's like, okay, now I can rest.
Right.
But it always feels great when things get pulled off like that,
Yeah.
But really incredible. What a special, just like a moment that maybe both of us would never have ever again, of this amazing way to kick off Switch era and the different experiences that you and I had. It's pretty cool.
Now, can you list the 3 first-party launch games?
One to Switch.
That's the first one you say?
Oh, yeah. My image of you milking that cow will haunt my dreams for the rest of my life.
I'm an expert at that.
You are very good at that.
Okay, 1.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And...
Do not look at this page.
Oh, gosh.
I'll give you a hint. It's a co-op game.
I'm going to look at the page.
Oh. Snipper Clips.
Snipper Clips!
Yeah.
Snipper Clippers. I love Snipper Clips.
Very unusual launch lineup, I would say.
Yes.
But, when you have an anchor like Breath of the Wild, it's like honestly, who cares? Snipper Clips is really great, though.
Snipper Clips is like unsung hero.
We had a lot of fun with that game. Yeah.
Switch launch.
Right. But then I think from there, the legacy of that year was just that 2017 lineup. And remember, this isn't even a full year. This is 9 months, because it came out in March.
Yeah.
Look at this list. Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ARMS, Splatoon 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and then capped off with Mario Odyssey. Are you joking?
It's insane.
That's the best year ever.
That was the best year ever.
Yeah, and I see people now that these Pokemon games have been announced. We'll talk about that later. It's we're kind of getting into 2017 territory. It's
no, you're not.
I don't think we're there yet.
Let's not go that far.
Having a lot of games does not mean having this lineup.
It's the lineup and the caliber, and also just this very... this varied kind of variety.
Right.
So many different things for anybody that wanted to play.
And this is purely my own speculation, but I always wondered, the people who are in charge of making those decisions had to have known, like, all right, the business opportunity on Wii U is just not there.
Right. So
let's get going on these games.
Yeah, hold
and
until
we'll just
Switch.
sit on them, and we will have.
I absolutely think that's
this
true.
Knockout lineup.
Yeah. Let's not put any more eggs in this Wii U basket.
Right.
Obviously, we're gonna phase it out. I think anyone that touched Switch in the early days, in the prototype days, felt the magic the way that we did. Anybody that touched it would definitely have felt that way too. So I think everyone was like, "This is it. This is it. We're gonna hold it until then." Good decisions, made by all.
Yeah.
Because it worked.
And that's probably why it's been so hard to replicate that from there on, because it was probably a years-long effort of consolidating.
I think it's way more than that. It's
all
gotta
of
be
these games.
a year plus.
Years, I said.
Years,
multiple, more than one.
Multiple years of effort.
Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I don't know if we'll ever see that again.
That decision was made like in the middle of the Wii U era. They were like, it's not working out. Let's hold it until then. Yeah. But yeah, what an incredible March that was 5 years ago. I can't believe it's been 5 years, but Switch is still doing really well. We're happy to see that, and there's lots of good games. This great game that just came out for it this year, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of fun games coming out later this year as well. So
one of the big topics of conversation now is like, well, where is the Switch in the life cycle? And even Mr. Furukawa has been pretty proactive in saying, like, we want to rethink how we look at a life cycle for a system. But on the flip side, I saw someone yesterday after the Pokemon announcement saying, like, well, looks like Nintendo's put all its eggs in this year's basket, and from there we're going to be moving on, which I think is completely wrong.
Yeah, I think that's completely wrong too. I think that's completely wrong. Nintendo doesn't do stuff like this, Like
what?
Like they're very much like we don't go with the normal life cycle or the pattern of things that everyone else does. Yeah. We're just going to do our own thing. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
And overall, I'm very much in favor of these longer generations. I've rarely reached the point where I'm like, there's nothing left in this hardware
for me to like enjoy or do something with.
I think the Xbox 360 had an unusually long life cycle.
Oh yeah.
And even then, I was like, I'm still having a great time with this. I don't feel like these games look bad or like you cannot. I'm sure developers might have had a different perspective where it's like, oh, I just want to do this thing and I can't do it on this hardware.
Yeah, it's not technically strong enough.
But again, Xbox 360 to Xbox One didn't go so well. So if you have something that's going as well as the Switch is now, why would you upend that when you can just keep going? And we've seen we've had a couple iterations on the hardware that kind of breathe new life into it. So there's no reason not to keep going.
Yeah. 4K Switch though. Where Nintendo?
Oh boy.
Where is it?
Moving on.
I'm gonna ask that question now.
Sure.
Work there.
Just like everybody else. Yeah.
I would like that.
Okay. You can play it on your projector from the hours strictly of 11 p.m. to 2 a.m.
That is not how that works.
Otherwise, you can't see it.
It's not how it works.
It is. You need a dark room.
I don't need a dark room.
You need to get rid of the windows in your house.
Black it all out. Just paint, black paint on the windows.
Right. Now I can game.
I'm like in a blanket. All right.
Woo.
That was
very fun.
A really fun way to relive it. I'm hope that you guys are reliving your own memories of when you got your Switch for the first time. So many people have incredible stories. I had 2 friends that were in Japan.
Really?
Buying Switch and going around to every single
oh my gosh,
big camera and
they don't live in Japan though. They're visiting.
They were on vacation.
Oh, good luck. Did they get it?
They did.
Wow.
But it was like 3 days of like lines and crazy, and they don't speak. They're like 2 like.
I guess that could be a fun thing to do if you don't have a packed schedule.
They talk about it all the freaking time. Like these 2, this was like their like highlight of their little lives.
That sounds fun, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I love these 2 guys, but they're like, this is the most incredible launch experience.
Now, you and I, Kit and Krysta, have not had, we've not had a hard time getting this hardware. The next big Nintendo launch, are we camping out, is my question to you.
Friends at Nintendo that I talk to every minute. Hook a girl up, won't ya?
Oh, I think it would be fun to do that.
I'll do it anyway.
You'll be there, you camped out with the system?
With the system, just to like experience. I camped out for the Wii though. I will tell you that story later, but that was a fun story.
The last one I camped out for was Xbox 360.
And it was very fun.
It was fun, but I was cold. Very cold.
Well, yes. Anyhow.
All right.